Hey guys, it's Britt. Welcome back to End Times Bible Prophecy. Today we have a very important topic to discuss. We're going to be talking about the revival of the Roman Empire. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because the Bible tells us that in the last days, right before Jesus comes back, the Roman Empire will be revived and turn into a dominant global superpower. Not just a superpower, but a power that will conquer the entire globe. Daniel chapter 7 tells us that this revived Roman Empire will trample and destroy everything in its path. And Revelation 13 tells us that it will have dominion over every people, tribe, nation, and language on the face of the earth. So everybody on the face of the earth is going to one day be subject to a revived Roman Empire. Now, why am I bringing that up now? Well, last week we had an important development when Boris Johnson, who is the outgoing Prime Minister of the UK now. We had this article that says, Boris Johnson keen on forging Roman Empire of wider Europe. And there's a picture of Boris Johnson standing with the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who also has similar ideas about a revived Roman Empire. And this article tells us Boris Johnson has said he is keen to forge a loose political alliance with European and North African leaders, comparing it to the Roman Empire in its pomp. French President Emmanuel Macron raised the idea of a new European political community with the Prime Minister when the pair met at the G7 summit in Germany. Now, thinking about this, it's really interesting to me because Boris Johnson was originally elected to push forward with Brexit and helping the UK to leave the orbit and the power of the European Union and its bureaucracy. So he's part of this push for more nationalism. At least that was the thought when he was put in. And now here he is advocating for a revived Roman Empire. Hey, now let's get together with all the nations of the EU and some other nations in North Africa and revive the Roman Empire. I find it kind of interesting, at least, to think about. And this comes on the heels of, there was an article back in March called, Is an EU Army Coming? Russia's war in Ukraine is turning the European Union into a serious military player. And it says, the war in Ukraine, politicians and pundits agree, is the European Union's sudden birth as a serious military player. Now, at least that's what the elitists in Europe hope. They've been talking about this since the end of World War II, pulling all the nations of Europe together under the idea that they would never go to war with each other again and it would bring peace and harmony. But really it's about power. It's about these leaders pulling together all of the economies and the military might of the European Union nations and using that power and control for themselves. And that's what we see happening with the EU. I think the European Union at the moment is not the revived Roman Empire spoken of in the Bible, but I believe that it very well is the precursor if it isn't going to turn out to be that revived Roman Empire. So let's take a look at what the Bible says. In Daniel chapter 2, Daniel is describing King Nebuchadnezzar's dream back to him, and it's a series of successive empires from Babylon on down to Rome. And in that he says, following that kingdom there will be a fourth one as strong as iron. He's talking about Rome here. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some of the strength of iron. But while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. So let's take a look at this passage and some of the things that's telling us the characteristics that the revived Roman Empire will have. Well, it says that it will be divided. It will be a kingdom divided. What are we seeing right now with the European Union? Well, we've seen Brexit. Is there Brexit? Is there no Brexit? Back and forth. We've seen problems over the years with currency and debt crises with Greece. Greece needs to be bailed out. Germany and other nations don't necessarily agree. And now we're seeing that here in 2022 with the war in Ukraine and how to sanction Russia, the degree to which you should sanction Russia. Each nation has its own ideas, and Italy and its leaders have met with Putin. Macron's met with Putin. The Prime Minister of Germany has his ideas. They're all over the place. There's no single unified voice, so you see this divided kingdom. And even here you see Boris Johnson coming out in favor of this revived Roman Empire when the UK has left the EU. And you think, why? What is this all about? Well, it's about fulfillment of this prophecy. You have this kingdom that's divided against itself. And it also describes it as, while some parts will be as strong as iron, others will be as weak as clay. We see that with the current European Union. We see some of the largest economies in the world with Germany and France and Italy. We see some of the smallest economies in the world like Luxembourg. But we also have the strength of, say, the German industrial might that we see on display today, next to the weakness of being dependent on Russia for its energy needs. So we're seeing that play out in multiple ways right here. And it says, just as these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances through intermarriage, they will not hold together just as iron and clay do not mix. So we've seen that. We've seen this volatility throughout the years as the European Union has formed into what it is today. But this is going to keep going forward. They're going to continue to strengthen this alliance because, A, that's what the Bible says. But we're seeing that take place today through some of these pronouncements like we've seen from Boris Johnson. Now, if you subscribe to the monthly newsletter, which is a free newsletter, by the way, but we have, back in May, that was the topic of the newsletter, was Russia, Ukraine, and the rise of the European Union. And we went through some of these topics in there about alliance, and then we get to this end part here on what happens next, right? So in that I wrote, look for EU advocates to push for greater unification, and that's exactly what we're seeing today, right? Particularly in regard to a unified foreign policy backed with the threat of an EU military force. The current disagreements appear to show weakness, but this weakness won't last. All the volatility we've seen so far makes it more likely the EU is an early phase of the alliance Daniel described. Why? Just as we went through that passage now, we see this volatility. We see all of the characteristics of that revived Roman Empire that the Bible describes in the current EU. It's a mirror image of the revived Roman Empire the Bible says will appear in the last days. It's made up of weak and strong nations. It's divided against itself, and the effort of these nations to come together and strengthen themselves is volatile and unstable. If the current crisis in Ukraine results in a single EU foreign policy and a unified EU military, the EU will take one more step toward becoming the global empire Daniel described. Keep looking up, because Jesus is coming. Guys, that's exactly the message you should take out of today's video, is Jesus is coming. This is one of many signs. Jesus said, when you see all these signs converge together, look up. You know your salvation is near. This is one more sign among many. Israel is back in the land. Israel is in control of Jerusalem. The gospel is being preached all across the earth. Now we're seeing a revived Roman Empire. And the next verse in Daniel that we should look at when he describes that empire that's very important is it says, during the reigns of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. Guys, that kingdom is the kingdom that Jesus Christ will establish. these world leaders, Boris Johnson, Emmanuel Macron, maybe others to come, they're going to set up a revived Roman Empire, just as the Bible said. It will conquer the earth, it will control the earth for a time, and it will be defeated and destroyed at the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he will establish his kingdom, and it will never end. So I know in today's world we have a lot of headlines that might be bringing you down. You know, the world is corrupt, it's filled with violence, there's terrible things happening. But keep in mind, this is all part of God's plan. God is in control, and Jesus is coming back, and all of these signs point to his soon return. So keep your head up, keep a smile on your face. Jesus is coming. That's our great hope. That's what it's all about. Because everything the world says that it wants, such as no violence, no tears, no death, no crying, all of those things are going to be brought when Jesus comes. So this is what we should be looking forward to. This should be your hope as a Christian. And so if you like this video, guys, make sure to hit like below, subscribe to see more of these video content like this. It really helps the channel. I'm trying to get this started up and get it out there to as many people as possible, because there's a lot of people that don't know about Jesus. They don't have that peace that surpasses all understanding that only Jesus can bring. And so by helping get these types of videos out there, maybe we help bring some people to Jesus. So guys, thank you for joining me today, and God willing, I'll see you soon.